On January 3rd, 1979, the winter wind off the Monongahela River carried a strange quiet that night, too clean, too hollow, pressing against the stained glass windows of Street Agnes Parish, as if the cold itself were eavesdropping. Inside, the last of the Christmas decorations still hung along the nave, their soft reds and golds reflecting the low amber glow of the sanctuary lamps. Father Anton Morozov moved through the aisle with the measured stillness of a man who had lived his entire life inside silence. He extinguished the final candle by the altar, drew his coat around his thin frame, and prepared to lock the front doors. That was when the confessional light flicked on. He froze, not startled, but calculating. No one used the confessional this late. Not in Pittsburgh, not in this neighborhood where the mills kept everyone asleep by 9. The light stayed steady. A faint red glow above the booth. A signal. Not an accident. Anton stepped inside the opposite compartment, lowering himself into the wooden seat. He knew the smell of the confessional too. Well, the varnish, the incense, the aging velvet of the kneeler, and tonight, those familiar scents wrapped around something else entirely. Fear. The sliding partition creaked open. A man's voice whispered, raw and uneven. Anton bowed his head. "The Lord hears you," he said, voice soft, warm, pastoral. His tone would have comforted anyone, except this wasn't a parishioner looking for absolution. The man's breath quivered. "I can't deliver the package anymore. I know they're following me. I know I've been flagged. I don't want to do this." Anton didn't answer. His hand drifted to the side panel of the booth, pressing lightly against the wood until a click too soft for ordinary ears confirmed that the embedded copper strip had engaged. From the outside, the church bell tower would show no sign of life, but inside its mechanism, a small detuning coil shifted ever so slightly, ready to broadcast the faintest possible signal across the river valley. The man continued, voice cracking. "Whatever they promised me, whatever they want me to hand over next time." A tremor traveled through his words. Not guilt, but terror. He wasn't confessing sin. He was confessing defection. Anton leaned closer, careful not to breathe too loudly. "My son," he murmured, "sometimes the only absolution is obedience." There was a silence, long, brittle. Then the man fled. Footsteps uneven across the stone tiles. Anton stayed in the booth for several seconds, pulse steady, eyes closed as if in prayer. When he finally rose, he didn't bless the confessional. He only whispered a single Russian phrase as he extinguished the light. Channel awakened, and somewhere beyond the river, someone heard it. Snow thickened over the south side by dawn, settling into the alleys and fire escapes like a slow erasure of the night before. The mills along Carson Street hadn't yet started their morning roar, leaving an unnatural stillness in the air, a stillness that wasn't lost on Special Agent Daniel Rowe as he stepped out of his sedan and stared up at Street Agnes Parish. Pittsburgh wasn't a city where things simply quieted down. Even on a Sunday, even in winter, something always moved. Steel trucks, river barges, the distant churn of factory furnaces. But today, the air held its breath. Something had shifted. Rowe could feel it. He didn't come for a case. He came because of a noise. Not a loud one, nothing anyone else would have heard. But at 2:17 a.m., his team's passive spectrum monitors, designed to detect Cold War-era low-frequency transmissions, lit up with a signal pattern they had only seen once before. A triple-pulse carrier, modulated against a detuned harmonic. Ancient by modern standards, primitive even, but terrifying in its familiarity. The last time the FBI saw it was 8 years ago, when a KGB courier out of Chicago triggered a dead network that should have been dormant since the Khrushchev era. But no KGB operative would use a format that outdated unless they were activating something that couldn't be modernized, something physical, hidden, static, a fixed node. Rowe traced the signal to within 100 meters. Only 3 structures fell in that radius: a locksmith, an abandoned mill office, and Street Agnes Parish. Only one had a bell tower tall enough to act as an improvised antenna. Inside, the church smelled faintly of cold wax and lingering incense. Parishioners shuffled in for morning mass, shaking snow from their coats. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious, except Rowe had learned long ago that the most compromised places were always the most innocent-looking. He moved quietly toward the side chapel. Then he saw him, Father Anton Morozov, lean, composed, expression unreadable. Nothing in his posture drew suspicion. Yet something in the air around him did. The calm of someone who never feared being watched because he had spent his entire life assuming he was watched. Rowe approached, flashing his badge just enough for the priest to see. "Father Morozov?" Rowe asked. The priest turned, smiling with pastoral warmth. Rowe gestured toward a pew. "I'd like a word." Anton nodded, unbothered, leading him deeper into the church, away from ears, away from eyes. Snowlight filtered through stained glass, washing them in muted blues and reds as they sat. "Father," Rowe began, "at 2:17 this morning, a transmission came from within this parish, a very old one. Soviet in origin." Anton folded his hands, gaze soft. "Agent Rowe, this is a house of God, not a radio station." Rowe studied him, because the man had just lied calmly, gracefully, and with the precision of someone who had practiced lying his entire life. And the only thing more alarming than the lie was how easily it came. Father Anton led Agent Rowe not to an office, not to a meeting room, but to the confessional, an enclosed wooden booth carved decades earlier by parish carpenters who never imagined it would one day become a pressure chamber of Cold War suspicion. He gestured for Rowe to enter first. Rowe paused. No FBI manual ever covered what to do when a suspected Soviet asset invited you into a space designed for secrets, a space where truth legally died the moment it was spoken aloud. But he stepped inside anyway, seating himself in the dim, incense-thick air. The sliding lattice opened with a soft wooden sigh, revealing the priest's silhouette behind it. "Agent Rowe," Father Anton said gently, "people come here burdened. They leave lighter. But you seem to be arriving heavy." Rowe ignored the bait. "Tell me why a Soviet-era burst transmission originated from this building." The priest folded his hands in the shadows. "Why are you asking me?" Rowe leaned forward. "Because you're the only thing in this parish that doesn't belong." A thin pause, measured, deliberate. Then Anton exhaled slowly, like someone settling into a role he had hoped never to play again. "Do you believe," the priest asked softly, "that a man is only what the state told him to be?" "I believe," Rowe replied, "that a man speaks more truth on his passport than in a sermon." Anton smiled, not angrily, not defensively. "You think this is about a single signal," he murmured. "But signals are rarely about content. They are about continuity." Rowe stiffened. The priest wasn't denying anything. He was contextualizing it. "Let's simplify," Rowe said. "Are you in communication with anyone in the Soviet Union?" Anton didn't answer. Instead, he lifted his hand and tapped the wooden partition. 3 taps, a pause, 2 more. The exact cadence Rowe heard at the Hale residence case years earlier, a cadence tied to Soviet non-voice command codes used not to send instructions, but to verify the existence of a sleeper asset. Ro's pulse spiked. Father Morozov, he said sharply. Who contacted you last night? Anton lowered his gaze. Why? Because they believe I've lived long enough in this country to be nearing the end of my usefulness. Ro felt something cold settle in his spine. And what does the KGB do? He asked quietly. With assets past their shelf life. Anton's answer was not immediate. When it came, it was not confident. It was resigned. They come to retrieve what remains valuable and erase what is not. A soft thud sounded outside, something shifting in the nave. Not parishioners, something heavier, purposeful. Ro reached for his sidearm. Anton didn't flinch. Agent Ro, the priest said quietly, you are not the only one who traced that signal here, because whoever or whatever had activated that ancient transmission was already inside the church. The creak came again, closer, this time somewhere near the transept where the votive candles flickered in their red glass cups. Ro rose slowly from the confessional, flattening himself against the wood. Every instinct sharpened. The church acoustics betrayed movement poorly. Footsteps dissolved upward into the arches, reflections bouncing until direction blurred. Father Anton stepped out more calmly, brushing the sleeve of his cassock as though he were simply preparing for morning mass. Is there another entrance? Ro whispered. 3. Why? Because it gives them a clear line of sight to eliminate both of us. Ro scanned the nave. Long shadows spilled between pews like dark water. Outside, the snow brightened a storm, beginning to press its white face against the stained glass windows. If someone wanted to slip in unnoticed, they had the perfect cover. Ro motioned toward a column. Anton followed. You said they, Ro murmured. Anton nodded. The network was never one man, not even in the beginning. You're telling me the KGB placed more than one? A sharp metallic click cut him off. Not a gun, a camera shutter. Then another rapid, old-fashioned film advance. Not digital. Ro pivoted. A silhouette stood at the back of the church, holding a compact 16mm reconnaissance camera, Soviet-made, modified, the kind designed to microfilm documents without permission. The figure stepped deeper into the nave, boots silent on stone. Anton inhaled sharply, not in fear, in recognition. That is not a retrieval agent. Ro frowned. Explain. It's Stowe. When the center suspects treason, they don't send soldiers first. They send a witness, someone whose job is to document the betrayal before the execution. The camera clicked again, aimed directly at Anton. Ro hissed, Father, get down. No. Anton whispered, he won't shoot me. He must first confirm that the signal came from this parish, and from me. The archivist raised his free hand and tapped his fingers against a pew. 3. Pause. 2. The exact verification knock pattern Ro heard at Hale's home years before. Anton's voice was barely air. He's asking if the asset is compromised. Ro stepped in front of the priest, drawing his weapon. Don't, Anton warned. If you kill him, a second team will come, and a third. They will assume the worst. They always do. Then what do you suggest? Anton stepped forward, not toward cover, but toward the danger. I will answer him. You can't, Ro hissed. Any acknowledgement keeps you in the network. That is precisely why I must. He raised his hand. Ro grabbed his wrist, whispering harshly, if you respond, you place yourself back under their command. They'll expect obedience. And if you refuse, Anton finished the sentence for him. They'll terminate the liability. The archivist tilted his head, waiting. Snow thundered softly outside, muffling the world until only the church's breathing stones were left. Ro faced the impossible. Let Anton answer, and risk binding him back to Moscow, or refuse. and trigger the protocol that would mark him for elimination. Anton closed his eyes. Agent Rowe, he murmured. No priest wants to speak a lie in a house of God. But I fear today I must choose the lie that saves a life over the truth that ends one. He stepped forward, and with a steady hand, he answered the archivist's knock. Anton's answering knock echoed through the nave 3 taps, the sanctioned pause, 2 more. A simple rhythm, but its meaning was immense. The asset acknowledges the query and awaits instruction. The archivist lowered his camera, not in relief, in confirmation. Rose saw the shift, the rigid posture of a man whose job had suddenly become easier. That was a mistake, he whispered. No, Anton said softly. It was the only way to keep him from signaling the center that I'd gone rogue. Will. But Rowe wasn't convinced. The archivist now reached into his coat, not for a gun, but for a small object no larger than a matchbox. Matte black, antenna folded. A relic from another era. Rowe recognized it instantly. A short-range burst transmitter, the kind that could send a kill order request half a world away in under a second. Father, move! The archivist pressed the device. A faint chirp, a pulse of static. Anton staggered, not physically struck, but emotionally gutted. He sent confirmation, he whispered. They know I'm still alive. They know I answered. They think I'm operational again. Rowe tightened his grip on his weapon. Anton shook his head slowly. No, Agent Rowe. They test me. The archivist approached, not aggressive, but with the precision of someone following instructions burned into him decades earlier. He stopped 10 feet away, lifted a small envelope, and placed it on the nearest pew. A silent directive. Anton whispered, They want me to pick it up. What's inside? Orders, or a location, or a target. He swallowed. That's not happening, Rowe snapped. Anton didn't move toward the envelope, but he didn't step back either. He stared at it, the way a condemned man looks at his final penance. This is how they rebind an old agent, he said quietly. Give him a task. Watch. If he obeys. And if you don't, Anton exhaled shakily. Then they assume I've defected. Defected? You're a priest now. To Moscow. Anton murmured. A priest is irrelevant. An exposed Soviet asset is not. Before Rowe could respond, the archivist tapped the pew twice, a reminder signal. Anton stepped backward, involuntarily. He's signaling that my time window is closing. If I don't retrieve it, they escalate. They always escalate. Rowe calculated the geometry of the room. He could shoot the archivist, but that would only confirm to any listening operators that the asset Anton had been compromised. It would unleash consequences far beyond this parish. And then Rowe noticed something new. A faint red reflection on the archivist's coat sleeve. He looked up. A laser sight. Not his. Not FBI's. Someone else was targeting the archivist. Father, Rowe whispered. Get down. Anton blinked. Why? Because someone here isn't following Moscow's protocol. Someone wants this man dead. The archivist stiffened. He sensed it too. Rowe pulled Anton behind a pew. A suppressed shot hummed through the nave. The archivist dropped instantly, the camera shattering beside him. Anton covered his mouth with a trembling hand. Rowe scanned the rafters, the balcony, the choir loft, but the shooter had already vanished. Only one thing was now certain. The KGB wasn't the only threat inside Street Cecilia's tonight. For several seconds after the archivist hit the floor, neither Rowe nor Anton moved. The silence inside Street Cecilia's was too tight, too clean, like someone had cut a hole out of the world and left only the echo. Rowe rose first, keeping low, his weapon sweeping the upper levels. No shooter, no movement. Only the choir loft's shadows rippling slightly from the draft of an open door. Anton knelt beside the archivist's body, not touching him, just staring, with a strange mix of pity and dread. He wasn't supposed to die. Rose's voice was low, sharp. Father, that man was sent to either recover you or neutralize you. His death doesn't bother me. What bothers me is who killed him. Anton didn't answer, because both of them already knew the terrifying implication. The KGB executed its own courier inside a church, before before the Bureau could, because someone wanted to erase evidence, or erase a witness. Rowe crouched and examined the body. No wallet, no documents, no identifying marks. Even the stitching on the coat was standardized, issued. But one thing was wrong. The envelope the archivist had placed on the pew minutes earlier was gone. Rowe stood still, every muscle locking. Someone had retrieved it. Father, he said, you told me your old network used redundancy layers upon layers. Yes, Anton murmured. Handlers behind handlers. Signals behind signals. What if this wasn't Moscow's network tonight? Rowe asked. What if this was a faction, a splinter, someone inside the machine, acting off the books? Anton's breath hitched. You're suggesting a second chain of command. I'm suggesting, Rowe said, that whoever killed the archivist had been here longer than we have and knew exactly what he was carrying. Another door creaked. This time, the small door near the confessional. Rowe pivoted instantly, gun raised. Anton flinched. But instead of an assassin, a trembling figure stepped out. Sister Miriam, the elderly nun who kept the church's ledgers, her hands still dusted with incense powder. Father Anton, she whispered. I thought I heard, oh my God. Her eyes fell on the body. Her face went white. Rowe braced for a scream, but instead, she crossed herself, then looked at Anton with an expression he had never seen on her before. Not terror, recognition. Sister, this is complicated. But Sister Miriam shook her head rapidly. No, you don't understand. She pointed at the archivist's coat. That man, he's been coming here for months, always sitting in the exact same pew, always confessing at the same hour. Her voice trembled. He wasn't here to confess to God. Rowe stepped closer. What did he confess? Sister Miriam hesitated, guilt tightening her throat. I couldn't repeat his words, Agent. But I can tell you this. He never confessed sins. Only instructions. Her eyes filled with tears, like he was reading from a script meant for someone listening. Rowe felt the floor tilt again. He used the confessional as a relay point, he said softly. A blind drop transmission node. Anton closed his eyes. It made perfect sense. Rowe continued. He wasn't speaking to a priest. He was speaking to the network. Sister Miriam nodded. But tonight. Rowe leaned in. What was it? She swallowed hard. He said, the shepherd has gone astray. Initiate retrieval. Anton went cold. That wasn't a message about me, he whispered. It was a message about them. Rowe stepped back, horrified as the realization formed. The archivist wasn't sent to check on Anton. He was sent to check on the other spy, the one who just retrieved the envelope, the one still inside the church. And for the first time tonight, Rowe realized they were not hunting a sleeper agent. They were standing inside the operational center of an active, multi-tier Soviet network, and one of its agents was still watching them from somewhere in the dark, somewhere above the nave. The church's old timber groaned a soft, deliberate sound, too measured to be the wind, and too quiet to be accidental. Rowe's eyes snapped upward, tracing the shadowed beams where candlelight couldn't reach. Sister Miriam clutched her rosary so tightly The beads clicked like distant Morse. Anton whispered, "He's still here." Roe didn't answer. He didn't need to. The whole church felt like a held breath, an architecture of silence, where a single pulse could give away a position. Whoever had taken the envelope had the advantage. Height, darkness, and the element of design. This wasn't improvisation. This was the final phase of a network engineered to survive discovery. Roe motioned the others back, stepping into the center aisle, exposed on purpose. A challenge, a lure. A faint shift of weight answered him from the choir loft. Then the voice came calm, disembodied, floating from the rafters. "Father Anton, you should have stayed forgotten." Anton stiffened. He knew the voice. Not a handler, not a courier, a paralytic, a specialist, assigned only when a network was being dismantled, someone deployed to silence leaks with surgical precision. Roe raised his gun. "Come down where we can see you." A soft laugh. "You American agents always want clarity. How naive." With a chaos, Roe signaled Anton and Sister Miriam to move toward the confessional. But before they could take 2 steps, the rafters creaked again, this time closer, above the baptismal font. The operative was shifting positions, using the high beams the way a sniper used alleyways. Anton murmured. Roe didn't move his gun. Let him try. The lights flickered, one of the side switches being tested remotely. An old trick. Plunge the room into darkness. Force confusion. Neutralize witnesses. But the power didn't die. Not completely. A soft orange glow remained. Sister Miriam's votive candles still burning by the altar, stubborn against the black, and that dim light was enough. A silhouette shifted above, just briefly, one leg reaching for the next beam. Roe fired. The shot cracked like a thunderclap, trapped inside stone. The silhouette faltered, stumbled, then collapsed through a wooden slat, tumbling down in a rain of dust and splinters. The body hit the pews with a soul-shaking thud. Silence. Then, Sister Miriam, whispering a prayer under her breath. Roe approached the fallen figure carefully. No pulse. The operative's coat had torn open, and tucked inside was the envelope, the one that had cost 2 lives tonight. He handed it to Anton. "Open it." Anton hesitated. "If it's what I fear." Roe's voice was steady. "Truth doesn't get smaller by waiting." With trembling fingers, Anton unfolded the paper. Only 1 page inside. No list of agents, no cipher sheet, no photographs, just a sentence, typed, center-aligned. "The network isn't broken. It's adapting." Roe exhaled, long and slow. They hadn't stopped a network. They had interrupted a metamorphosis. Anton looked at him. Fear and resignation, mixing in equal measure. "This isn't the end, Agent Roe." "No," Roe said. Outside, the first blue flash of bureau vehicles slid across the church walls, quiet, unmarked. Arriving without sirens, like a whisper entering the national record. Men in plain clothes moved with precision through the courtyard, already preparing to extract evidence, secure statements, write a version of this incident that could live inside classified files forever. Roe watched them for a moment, then turned back to the altar, where wax continued to melt silently down its candle. In the shadows of Street Cecilia's, he understood something unspoken. There would be no press conference, no headlines, no medals, only a single line in an internal memo. Operational anomaly resolved. Potential Soviet node neutralized. Network evolution under analysis. And as he and Anton stepped out into the cold Kansas night, Roe felt the truth settle over him with the weight of a century. In the Cold War, victories were quiet, losses were quieter, and the deadliest battles were the ones no nation ever admitted had happened.